Chapter 2. Birdwatcher. I'm not going to school. I hate it, screamed Cyril and ran out of the house. Cyril was a willful 11-year-old who disliked being in a classroom. What he liked doing instead was to climb trees and to peep into birds' nests. Today Cyril's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, were quite embarrassed at Cyril's behavior, because he had created a scene in front of Dr. Gopal Rao, who was staying with them. Dr. Rao had come to New Zealand all the way from India to give lectures on birds. I am sorry, Dr. Rao, Mrs. Fisher said sadly. Cyril is so fond of climbing trees and peeping into birds' nests that he just doesn't want to go to school. I understand, said Dr. Rao, smiling. In the evening, while Mr. Fisher was still at work and Mrs. Fisher was in the kitchen, Dr. Rao and Cyril had tea together. Cyril, I heard you're fond of birds, Dr. Rao said, biting into a piece of delicious cake specially baked for him by Mrs. Fisher. Cyril blushed. Do you know, I too love birds and hated going to school when I was your age? Dr. Rao continued. Cyril was startled. He couldn't believe that an old man like Dr. Rao could have ever liked to peep into a bird's nest. But as Dr. Rao talked about his childhood adventures, Cyril's disbelief turned to admiration. After tea, Dr. Rao took Cyril to his room and showed him several books on birds. Cyril gazed at the beautiful pictures for a long time. Suddenly, he let out a cry, Oh, I've seen this bird. Impossible, said Dr. Rao. These books show rare birds and you won't see any of them here. But Cyril was sure he had seen the bird, in fact, a pair of them. Uncle, I have seen them. I've spotted their nest in a huge oak tree. Dr. Rao walked up to Cyril and glanced at the book he was holding. Once again, he shook his head and said, I'm sure you are making a mistake, Cyril. The black robin of Chatham Island is one of the rarest birds. You couldn't have seen any of them here. Cyril insisted that he had not made any mistake. Rare or ordinary, he had definitely seen two of them. In that case, can you show them to me? Asked Dr. Rao. Yes, right now, if you want. Dr. Rao hastily put on his coat, pulled out a pair of binoculars, and stepped out of the room. Cyril followed him. Dr. Rao kept talking about rare birds as they walked up to the oak tree. As soon as they were near enough, Cyril said excitedly, There, that's the nest. Dr. Rao looked up and saw a small cup-shaped nest neatly tucked into a fork of the branches. Quickly he took out his binoculars and peered at the nest through the lenses. I hope your black robins haven't retired already, Dr. Rao said, his eyes glued to the nest. It was getting dark and all the birds were returning to their nests. Suddenly, Dr. Rao mumbled, SSH. Keep quiet. Here comes one. See, didn't I tell you? There are two of them. Cyril exclaimed. Dr. Rao silently watched the birds until they went back to their nest. He looked thoughtful. You're right, Cyril, but let's come again tomorrow morning. The next day, Dr. Rao and Cyril woke up before dawn and walked to the oak tree. Cyril was happy because he had Dr. Rao's spare binoculars with him. Soon day broke and the birds began to twitter and stir out of their nests. The blackbirds also came out. Immediately, Dr. Rao and Cyril focused their binoculars on them. After a while, Dr. Rao cried excitedly, Hurrah, Cyril! They really are black robins. Now climb the tree quickly and look in the nest. Cyril climbed up. Uncle, there are two eggs, he shouted from the treetop. Dr. Rao smiled happily. He asked Cyril to climb other trees, peep into the nests, and count the number of eggs in each of them. He notes Cyril's findings in his thick diary. After a few minutes, Dr. Rao said, Cyril, you must help me save the birds. Save the birds, exclaimed Cyril. Yes. What we just saw are the black robins of Chatham Islands. Only 5 of them, 3 females and 2 males, are known to be living. They are on Mangere Island, east of New Zealand. Left to themselves, the birds will die without multiplying, and then there will be no more black robins on Earth. Will our black robins also die? Cyril inquired anxiously. No, we won't let them die. We'll save them. But how? We'll steal their eggs and put them with the eggs in other birds' nests. The black robins will then lay a fresh set of eggs. This way we can double the number of eggs every season. Can we steal the eggs now? Cyril asked eagerly. Yes. But we'll have to be extremely careful. It will be risky to use bare hands because the eggs are tiny and delicate, and damp and dirty hands may transfer bacteria right into the eggs through their porous shells. Dr. Rao took out several articles from his knapsack. He made Cyril wash his hands and dry them. Next, he gave him some kind of spoon and a small container, both rinsed in a disinfectant. Finally, with the help of his thick diary, he showed Cyril 2 warbler nests to which they could transfer the black robin's eggs. Cyril followed the instructions and gently placed an egg in each of the 2 warblers' nests. The 2 trees were marked. Now we must pull down the black robin's nest, Dr. Rao said. Only then will the black robins build a new nest and lay a fresh set of eggs. Cyril ran quickly and pulled down the tiny cup-shaped nest. I'm going to keep this as a souvenir, he told Dr. Rao. On their way back, Dr. Rao said, Cyril, you'll have to work hard to make this experiment successful. Of course, some of my friends will soon come and camp here. You'll help them, won't you? Yes, said Cyril. I'll certainly help them save the black robins. We've done enough for this season, Dr. Rao explained. No doubt they can lay eggs 3 or 4 more times, but we must not tire them out. Back home, Dr. Rao told Mr. and Mrs. Fisher about the wonderful work Cyril was doing to preserve one of the rarest birds on Earth. They were pleasantly surprised when they saw Cyril's photograph splashed across the pages of a newspaper. An article in the newspaper said that they had spotted 2 rare birds in his village, transferred their eggs and taken care of them. As a result of his efforts, there would be more black robins in the world. That night, Mrs. Fisher found Cyril at his desk, studying. Cyril, she exclaimed. You're studying geography? You needn't be surprised, Mama, Cyril replied. If I don't study geography and don't go to school, how can I become an expert on birds?